Hello YouTube, this is Dazzathecameraman. Today is Tuesday, August 29th, 2017. It's just gone 2 p.m. here in New Zealand. And this is a response video hangout. Now I have shown considerable restraint over the last few days. I always try to take the diplomatic route whenever possible, rather than going to war with people. Anyone who knows me well, knows that I try to be fair, I try to be respectful, and conflict is always the last resort with me. Even with Scott Cohn, right back in the early days, back in October last year, I did that first hangout with Astronomy Live where we discussed Scott Cohn's video about planet Enoch supposedly passing in front of the sun, which of course was the moon, the Earth's moon, which came into view when one of the stereo spacecraft was heading out into its orbit around the sun. And that's all it was. It was the moon. It wasn't anything unusual. It wasn't planet Enoch or Nibiru, planet X, a brown dwarf or anything like that. It was the moon. And Scott Cohn contacted me and wanted to tell his side of the story. He seemed very sincere, and we spoke for probably about an hour on Skype that evening. And he seemed to be very sincere. I thought he was being honest with me, and that he had been a little bit confused and had sincerely uploaded a video and got it wrong, and he wanted to put things right. So the very next day, we had another hangout. And Scott joined Astronomy Live and I for that hangout, and we talked, I think, for about an hour and a half or so, and it all went very well. It was very respectful, and Scott thanked Astronomy Live and I at the end of the hangout for being what he called perfect gentlemen, for acting like grown-assed adults, as he put it, and not behaving like thugs. And he told us that he enjoyed himself and he would like to join again. Well, of course, a few hours later, as I've told this story many times now, he exploded on my private message thread on Facebook and alleged that he had been in contact with two professors of astronomy from Pittsburgh University, and that he had been sent a 13-page PDF document completely debunking everything that Astronomy Live and I were saying about his planet Enoch. We now know that that, of course, was complete nonsense. Scott has admitted that he lied. I have him on record admitting that he lied and that he tried to call my bluff. And I have him on record on more than one occasion admitting that he lied and that he tried to call my bluff. So that was the catalyst for the war that broke out between Scott Cohn and I. It was completely unnecessary. As I said, I always try to be respectful from the start. Whenever possible, I try to avoid conflict with people. But I will call out liars and fearmongers and hoaxers for what they are. And if they can't play nicely, if they're going to be nasty, I will fight fire with fire. I will defend myself if I have to. Now, as I said, at the start of this hangout, there's a few more people joining, and of course this is on my Arena channel, so there's not so many people subscribed, but this video will stay up so that other people can listen to it later. So I mentioned that I have been displaying considerable restraint in the last few days, and here is why. Because I've had a malicious copyright strike filed against my Dazzathecameraman main channel. Now, who do you think would file a copyright strike against Dazzathecameraman? Well, I've had several copyright strikes in the past, of course, and all of them have been unsuccessful. I have appealed every one of them in the past, and every single one of them has been unsuccessful on the grounds of fair use. So when is an act of war not an act of war? Well, of course, over on the J&M channel, we've been listening to a number of rants over the last several days, from Jake in particular. about the trolls and the shills and the haters and all the rest of it, and all the horrible, nasty things that they've been doing to J&M. And you know who I'm talking about. The people that tell you that if you mention their name or show their faces or say anything about them, that they're going to strike you with a privacy strike, or they're going to strike you with a copyright strike, because nobody is to touch the J&M channel. They're above the law, apparently. The rules that apply to them do not apply to everybody else, and the rules that apply to everybody else do not apply to them, apparently. So let's go back to the beginning. This latest conflict that has broken out. Yes, I've had a major falling out with J and M. And what caused this? Well, somebody sent me a private message with a link to Jake's video on his video channel mocking Logan Runnin. And this video appeared to be defending the physicist, Claudia Albers. At least that's what the private message to me said. You know, I was told to take a look at this video because it appeared that Jake was defending the physicist. So I went and had a look at the link, went and watched the video, and sure enough, Jake was ripping into Logan. But for all the world, it seemed to me that he was defending the physicist, Claudia Albers. He kept making the point over and over again that her videos were for entertainment purposes only. And he seemed to be making the point that she should not be taken seriously. He made this point several times in that video, and it certainly seemed to me as if he was defending Claudia Albers, who we all know, of course, is a fraud. She's a fearmonger, she's a liar, she's a hoaxer, and I can say all those things because they're true. So what do you think the right thing would be for Dazzathecameraman to do under those circumstances, when he was trying to remain neutral and not get involved in all of the fighting and nastiness that's been going on? And it has been very nasty. I've seen some things that have been going on both sides, which, you know, left me scratching my head or shaking my head even. And yeah, I have to say there's been some things go down on both sides that have been pretty unpleasant. Some things that have been said from different people, which are probably not appropriate, and I certainly don't condone. So what do you think the right thing would be to do under those circumstances, where I see that Jake has uploaded a video and he seems to be supporting Claudia Albers? Do I go and talk about it all over the internet? Do I make a video about it and publish it on my YouTube channel? Do I do a live hangout and talk smack about J&M and accuse them of being fearmongers and supporting Scott and supporting Claudia Albers and supporting all the other people that people are saying that they're supporting? Do I do that? Or should I go to Jake privately and send him a private message and ask him directly for his version of the story? Is that the right thing to do, or is that the wrong thing to do? Just let me know if in the chat. I can see that there's a couple of messages there. So if you're in the chat and listening, just let me know so I know I'm not talking to myself. So I contacted Jake and I asked him very politely, in the most diplomatic words that I possibly could choose, so that he could explain to me what the story was behind this video. Because as I say, it certainly appeared to be supporting the physicist and saying that her videos were for entertainment purposes only and should not be taken seriously. And Logan should get off her back and stop hassling her because it's all just for entertainment, right? That's the way that I saw the video, right or wrong. So I went to Jake and asked him. Well, Jake didn't take too kindly to me daring to ask him about that. He's accused me of accusing him of supporting the physicist. I didn't accuse him of any such thing. I went to him privately and directly and asked him to clarify what the story was with his video, which I believe was the right thing to do. So, of course, Jake and I had words over it because he was not happy and he started cursing like he does and getting all upset with me. And this was via Facebook private message. And then in the end, we ended up talking via Skype or Facebook voice call. I can't remember which one. And we ended up having a screaming match at the end of it because, you know, Jake likes to talk over everybody, and I try to be a bit more polite and diplomatic and let people talk. But, you know, Jake has to jump in and talk over the top of everyone. And, you know, so we ended up having a screaming match because he was talking over me. So I thought, well, you're not going to talk over me, so I'm going to talk over you. So we ended up having a screaming match. And then, of course, the call ended. And next thing I know, what is Jake doing? After saying to me in his private messages that he and M were sick of all of the negativity, that they'd had enough of it, that they weren't doing it anymore because it's all an energy siphon, to use his words. He was sick of the energy siphon that YouTube has become, and they're not going to do this anymore. So what did he do right after saying all of that? He got right on a live hangout, didn't he? And he started talking smack. Now, he didn't say anything too bad about me in that hangout or that live stream, but he did mention that he said, I've got Dazza the cameraman on my ass now. And so he talked a little bit about that. So I jumped in the live chat on his live stream there to defend myself. Now, once again, I was polite. I didn't say anything nasty. I simply tried to clarify the situation. So what did Jake do? So that I could no longer defend myself. What a coward. Now, everybody knows that I've got a policy on my channel of open and balanced discussion. And I very seldom block anyone, and I only block people in the most extreme cases where it's really necessary. And I certainly don't block people that I'm debunking because I do believe that they should have the right of reply to defend themselves if necessary. So there was Jake jumping straight into a live stream to talk smack about everybody, including me. And he blocks me when I go to defend myself. But guess what happened next? Well, the next morning, I discover in my emails that I've got a copyright strike from WTF Sky. That's right. They have filed a copyright strike against Dazza the cameraman. And what was the video that they struck down? Well, it was a hangout video that I did along with them and Lee Wheelbarger at the beginning of July, so beginning of last month. We're right at the end of August now, so it's been almost 2 months. Now, that was a hangout video, so it was a joint video that we did. It was hosted on YouTube's service. It contained my content as well, because obviously I was a participant in that video. And I shared content from my laptop using my Starry Night software, and we looked at some things and so on. So that video includes my participation, it includes my content, and it includes my images. And it was a hangout video hosted on YouTube servers. It's not like it was a video that was created on a computer somewhere and then uploaded to video. It was actually a joint hangout with a number of participants, including myself. So I think that that puts a different light on it as well. But not only that, of course, at the end of the hangout, I was encouraged and given permission to upload the hangout to my channel, which I did. I think on the 4th of July, so nearly 2 months ago. And now suddenly I have a copyright strike from WTF Sky. Now, if that's not an act of war, I don't know what is. If that is not an act of hostility, I don't know what is. If that is not being malicious and nasty, I don't know what is. But anyway, I contacted J and M via email, and as always, I was very diplomatic, very polite, showed considerable restraint again, and I politely requested that they retract their copyright strike against me. Now, I didn't say it at the time in the email because I thought it would be like waving a red flag at a bull, but I gave them 24 hours to do so. So I sent them a very polite email. I didn't give them any ultimatums or anything like that. I didn't set a deadline and say, you've got 24 hours or else. I politely requested that they retract their copyright strike and that we could, you know, draw a line under this and all move on, and, you know, that their copyright strike was not necessary, that they'd given me permission to upload the video, in fact, that they'd encouraged me to upload the video, and that if they had a problem and that they actually wanted me to remove the video, all they needed to do, of course, was to send me a private message or an email and say, we want you to remove that video. And I would have done so, just to avoid the conflict and to avoid a copyright strike, of course. But no, what did they do? They went straight to YouTube and they filed a copyright strike against Dazzathecameraman instead of politely asking me to remove the video. So is that an act of war? What do you guys think? Do you think that's an act of war? Do you think that's an act of hostility against Dazzathecameraman from WTF Sky? Do you think that it was necessary to file a copyright strike when they could have simply asked me to remove the video if they didn't want it on my channel? Do you think that it was fair of them to give me a copyright strike for a video that I was a participant in, since it was a group hangout? Do you think it was fair of them to do a copyright strike against a video that had been on my channel for 8 weeks with their full blessing and encouragement? Yes, it is an act of crybaby, not an act of war. Well, I see it as both, actually, because of the emails that have gone backwards and forwards. Because I've been over backwards in the last 4 days to try and meet them in the middle. And, you know, I've explained it to them several times that, as I said just before, if they'd had a problem with the video being on my channel, all they had to do was to politely ask me to remove it, and I would have done that. Very simple. But instead they chose to file a copyright strike, which to me is nothing less than a malicious act of hostility. It was an act of war. And then I see that Jake has had a number of hangouts. I've probably lost count of how many, because some of them would have been in the middle of the night, my time. At least 4, possibly 6, maybe more. And of course he's been talking smack. And there he was again a couple of hours ago talking smack about me again. Now, to be fair, what he said was nothing too serious, except that he was presenting his side of the story with some inaccuracies. For example, he said that I was out there accusing, or at least that I had accused him of supporting the physicist. I made no such accusation. I went to him privately so that he could explain to me what the reason was behind his video and what he was trying to say, because, to be fair, it did seem to be supporting the physicist, saying that her work was nothing more than entertainment purposes only, and she shouldn't be taken seriously, and Logan should leave her alone. So there's me asking for a please explain, and he flies off the handle because how dare Dazzathecameraman ask Jake to explain the reason behind his video. Now, I would think that going to him privately and directly is what a friend would do, instead of going out there publicly and talking smack about him behind his back or whatever. I try to do the right thing by going to him privately and directly and asking him, and basically he just dumped on me. So there we go, folks. That's J and M for you. And you should see the emails. In fact, I might even pull them up. Let me have a look. The emails backwards and forwards. As I said, I've tried to be as diplomatic as possible with the emails backwards and forwards, and I've had nothing but a torrent of expletive-ridden abuse particularly from Maori. So this is what we're dealing with now. As I said in one of my emails back to Maori, and I can use your name Maori because you use it in your YouTube videos, so you can't give me a privacy strike, because whenever you publish anything in your Hangouts, including your image, your face, once you've published it on YouTube, you have no grounds for privacy strike. If I'm disclosing your private identifying information that is not already published in your videos, then you have grounds. But you use your name Maori, and Jake uses his name Jake, and your channel names are not protected by privacy. So I can use your names. But anyway, the expletives that were in those emails from Maori, and I remember that back in the early days, talking about WTF Sky, she explained that the WTF, which for what the fuck, as far as I'm aware, didn't stand for what the fuck, and excuse my language because I don't like to use expletives. She explained that WTF actually stands for what the faith, because she is Christian. And this is something that I really get sick of seeing. And this is something that I don't make a big deal out of, but some of you know that I actually have Christian faith. I know I'm not perfect, but one of the reasons why I'm not out there preaching my head off online or whatever is because I know I'm not perfect. And if you start preaching, then you've got to hold yourself out to a higher standard. In fact, any Christians that are familiar with the scriptures know that in James 3:1 it actually says that. It says, "Not many of you should be teachers, my brethren, because you will be judged more severely." So there we go. That's straight out of the Bible. Yes, I do share with people when I get the opportunity. But the expletives, getting back the expletives, this is the reason why I don't use expletives except when I'm quoting somebody. Yes, sometimes I'll call bullshit bullshit because I think it's important to call things for what they are sometimes. But the language that comes from Maori on her Hangouts and in these emails would make a sailor blush. So I've challenged Maori on that in one of the emails, and yes, I sent her a link, which I've been sending a few Christians lately, about using profanities. What does the Bible say about using profanities and expletives and unclean talk and all that sort of thing? If you're going to hold yourself out to the public as being a Christian, then you're holding yourself out to a higher standard of judgment. If you're going to hold yourself out to be a Christian, then you have to be an example as a Christian. And, talk about blaspheming the name of God. If you want to blaspheme the name of God, then just act like a complete heathen and claim that you're a Christian. And in that way, you're actually blaspheming the name of God. All right? And as I say, I don't make a big deal out of it. I know that some people have an issue with a debunker being a Christian, and I can understand that. I can actually respect that. I can understand the reasoning behind it, but I'll also say that there are a number of very skilled, very intelligent astronomers and astrophysicists and other scientists, molecular biologists, and all sorts of other scientists who are also Christians, because they see what they believe is design behind creation, and that doesn't necessarily mean special creation. But I'm not on here to preach. I'm happy to talk to people privately or whatever, or even in a hangout. That's not what this is about. My point is that if you're going to claim to be a Christian and you've got a mouth like a sewer, well, I would be very careful about labeling yourself as a Christian, because you're bringing the name of Christ into disrepute by claiming that you're a Christian. So I might share those emails at some other time in another hangout. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to screen share any private information that's going to come back and bite me. But I just want people to hear and understand the story of what's going on behind the scenes. As I said, I've shown considerable restraint in the last few days. This is the first time I've publicly responded to this copyright strike from WTF Sky. And I have bent over backwards to try and be diplomatic in my response to Mari and Jake via email privately. I make no apologies for going to Jake directly and privately and asking him about that video that he uploaded, which appeared to be defending Claudia Albers. I make no apologies for that. I believe that that was the right thing to do. And even from a Christian point of view, there are scriptures that say if your brother offends you, go to him directly and try and sort it out between the two of you. And if he won't hear you, go and take another brother, or is it two brothers, along so that they can bear witness. And if he still won't hear you, then basically have nothing further to do with them. So this has been happening over the last few days, and as I say, I've shown considerable restraint until now, and there was Jake again, and yet another with Mari, talking smack about everybody. And this is after saying that they've had enough of all of the negativity and that it was all an energy siphon and that they're not doing it anymore. And how many times have we heard Jake say that now? And then he's on another hangout talking smack about people and calling them liars and calling them names and saying all these things. And yes, I said before that there are things that have happened on both sides that are wrong. There are things that have been said. There are allegations that have been made, and I don't know if those allegations are true or not. I'm tempted to make a comment about that because I see that one of the participants is in the chat. And if you know who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about, and you're in the chat, maybe you would like to respond in the chat about those allegations that have been made about you. And if you want to, I can talk about that here now in this hangout. But I'm not going to get into that because I don't know if those allegations are true or not. But if you want to comment on that, then I'll be happy to speak into it now. There were some allegations that something very unkind was said to Mari, and about a personal situation that happened with her, and I would hate to think that those comments were true. There was also an allegation that of a threat of violence against Mari, and apparently communicated via email. So I don't know if that's true or not. All I have is what I've heard from Jake and Mari. So for the person in the chat, and I'm not going to mention your name at the stage, I can send you more information about what the allegation is later if you don't know what I'm talking about, and then maybe we can respond to it later. But anyway, if they're going to make such allegations, they should provide proof, which they've talked about doing, but so far they haven't actually provided proof. The other thing is, of course, that there are a lot of sock puppets around, a lot of accounts impersonating other accounts. And whenever you see a comment from somebody in the chat or under comments under the YouTube channels, under the YouTube videos, you need to click on that link and go to the channel and make sure that it is actually the real channel that they claim to be, because there are some fake channels out there trying to cause trouble by posting comments and so on. You need to go and make sure that they've got the right number of videos and the right number of subscribers and all the rest of it. Make sure that it's not a sock puppet fake account. So that's just an explanation of what's been happening in the last few days. By the way, yes, indeed, I have filed a counterclaim on the copyright strike. The copyright strike that WTF Sky filed against Dazzathecameraman, the malicious copyright strike that they filed when they could have simply emailed me and asked me to remove the Hangout video of which I was a participant in and shared content in and was given permission to upload and encouraged to upload to my channel in the first place. I have filed a counterclaim with YouTube, and as I mentioned, every counterclaim that I have filed in the past has been successful. I have had copyright strikes filed against me in the past. None of them have been successful. Oh, and Mari told me that she would be going to her lawyer on the Monday, which I guess is probably yesterday or earlier today your time, because remember, New Zealand is well ahead. We're at in the first time zone for all of the world. It's currently 2:36 p.m. here on Tuesday right now. So Mari told me that she was going to go to her lawyer and that she was going to sue me, and that she's just sold a house, so they've got lots of money to spare to pay for a lawyer. And my response to that was, well, good luck, Mari, because all you're going to be doing is making your lawyer richer and yourself poorer, and you're not going to achieve anything because Dazzathecameraman has no money. So good luck there. And also the fact that I'm in New Zealand and you're in the US, it's going to be very expensive to try and sue me, but good luck. And you can't get blood out of a stone, as I told you in the emails anyway. So good luck on that. And Jake and Mari, through the private emails that have been going backwards and forwards over the last few days, thank you very much. You've shown your true colours. At least I know who and what I'm dealing with here. There's been a lot of nastiness that's been going down between the different groups over the last couple of months, and I have tried to remain neutral, as I've said before, as I've even said in the Hangouts that I've done with Jake and Mari before. I try to remain neutral because our focus should be on debunking the liars, the hoaxes, and the fearmongers instead of fighting with each other. Yet here we are. I would rather be spending my time and energy debunking the fearmongers than fighting with the people who should also be debunking the fearmongers. But unfortunately, the debunkers, in this case, have become the fearmongers. And yes, you are fear-mongering as far as I'm concerned. I will say that the weather has changed, the climate has changed, and I've said it before. Global warming. It's not because of solar minimum. Hurricanes are powered by heat. Hurricanes are powered by energy. And also, the more heat that we have through global warming, the more evaporation there is. The more evaporation there is, the more moisture there is in the air. The more moisture there is in the air, the more rainfall you will have. The more rainfall you have, the more flooding you will have. And that is exactly what we are seeing now. We are seeing it all over the world. It's happening here in New Zealand. And I have to say that I believe that we will be seeing these extreme weather events more frequently, and they will become more severe. Now, is it fear-mongering if it's the truth? No, it's not fear-mongering if it's the truth. Because how can it be fear-mongering if it's the truth? If you're telling lies about something, or even if you're sincerely incorrect, and you're saying that there is a brown dwarf passing through our solar system and it's going to cause earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and climate change and all the rest of it, and there isn't a brown dwarf or Nibiru Planet X passing through the solar system, then it is fear-mongering. But if the CO2 levels are going through the roof and have already passed the 400 ppm level, which we know is a fact, and the global temperatures are warming, and we know that that's going to cause increased evaporation, increased heat, and it's going to drive hurricanes and all that sort of thing, then that is not fear-mongering. Now, we can disagree about what's causing the climate change, whether it's global warming or whether it's solar minimum or all of that sort of thing, but we don't have to be nasty about it. there's no need to be nasty about it. We can debate things openly without attacking each other. And Tiffany, Queen of Hooks, has been doing a fantastic job with her videos and her research, putting the information out there. And if you haven't seen Tiffany's videos, I suggest you go over to Queen of Hooks and check out her videos. She's been doing a great job. Oh, and also, she has a planned interview with Dr. Keith Strong. Some of you may be familiar with the Dr. K Strong YouTube channel. He is a real solar physicist, and he's also very interested in climate change. You can check his videos about climate change and the recent data on that on his channel. He's planning to do a hangout with Tiffany, and that should be a very interesting discussion. I'm looking forward to that. That's a great hangout to be doing with Dr. Strong. I'm really looking forward to that one. So as I say, there's no need to be nasty. There's no need to be attacking each other on the debate about what is actually causing climate change. I think that we will all agree that there is climate change going on. We can see these extreme weather events. I will certainly say that it's not caused by Nebular Planet X or a brown dwarf or anything like that. It is caused because of the changes in the atmosphere, which, again, it's a controversial topic, but some people believe it is due to human activity, the increased CO2, carbon dioxide, that we're pumping into the atmosphere, and other factors. But certainly you can see that the CO2 levels are going up and up and up and up. And when you map everything else, in fact, there's a very good video in my climate change playlist that actually shows what's really going on by charting the different things, such as looking at whether it's caused by deforestation or whether it's caused by ozone or sunspot activity and all sorts of things. They chart all of the things and look to see what actually matches the increase in global temperature. And there's one thing that actually matches, and that is the increase in CO2. And by the way, as I mentioned, yeah, somebody's just mentioned Raven in the chat. Raven has been speaking out about her insight into Scott Cohn. So you'll find a link to Raven's channel under my recent heads up video about that. Go and check out her videos. Scott Cohn is trying very hard to silence her, of course, because he doesn't want people to know the truth about what he's really like and the things that he has disclosed in private messages and text messages with Raven. Very telling, very interesting insight into what's gone on. And of course, Raven was actually living with Scott for a number of months. So she's got a pretty good idea of what's been going on, including the fake car bomb or the fake pipe bomb story. Some of you may remember that Scott Cohn claimed that two guys had been caught trying to plant a pipe bomb under his car. Well, that story was all a lie, of course. How do we know? Because you can always tell when Scott is lying because his lips are moving. It's as simple as that. Just like the fake story about being in contact with the two professors of astronomy from Pittsburgh University, who I emailed, and they confirmed to me that they didn't know this man, that they'd had no contact with Scott Cohn. And of course, Scott admitted later that he lied. He said, quote, I lied, I tried to call your bluff, end quote. That's one quote. He's actually admitted on at least 3 occasions that he lied and that he tried to call my bluff. So is Scott Cohn a liar? Yes, indeed. He's admitted it himself. That is a matter of record. Oh, and of course, these two guys that were supposedly arrested and, you know, and then finally it went to court because everybody was saying, you know, well, what's going on? What's happening with this case? Which nobody could find any public record of, by the way. And then he claimed that, well, they went to court, but then the two guys escaped and nobody knows where they are now. How very convenient. You've got quite the imagination, Mr. Cohn, haven't you? So there we go, folks. I won't go on too much longer. That's just an insight into what's been going on over the last few days. If there are any comments or questions in the chat, I'll be happy to respond if I can. Otherwise, I'm going to wind this up very shortly. But just to suffice to say that Dazzathecameraman main channel has received a malicious and unnecessary copyright strike from WTF Sky over a video that I was a participant in, a hangout video where I shared content and was encouraged to and was given permission by WTF Sky to upload that video, to mirror that video on my channel, which I did with their blessing. And then they turned around and filed a copyright strike when they could have simply emailed me and asked me to remove the video, which I would have done to avoid the conflict. I have filed a counterclaim against that, and I will not be bullied with copyright strikes or privacy strikes. I will stand my ground, and I will fight fire with fire if I have to. And if anybody's going to start trying to use false copyright strikes to try and harm my channel, well, you're going to find yourself on the receiving end of like with like, because I know that I have a number of supporters out there who at the drop of a hat will rally to my support and will fight fire with fire. So if those are the sort of tactics that you want to use, you better be prepared to be on the receiving end as well. So with that said, I think I will wind this up now. And please be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already to my Arena channel so that you get further updates. And I'll keep you posted. So thank you for joining me, and take care. This is Dazza the Cameraman.